that if we as coaches can come alongside and figure out how to not fix the fear, but if we can make it kind of safe to say, okay, what if? When did we become so fixated on like biomechanics we forget about all the other things that are important? You know what I mean?
Better pick the right person to learn from. But if it sounds too good to be true, if it's oversimplistic, if it's always ultimatum, if it's never I don't know, run.
You're between two dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. Joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Marv, but we have a third dumbbell. Again, we are between what? 3 dumbbells today. Dr. Dani LaMartina is joining us. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I had to throw that.
You filled it for me. I mean, that's what my brain was doing, so you just read my mind. It's all good. You were better at that, though.
For each show, we typically posit a thought about training exercise or training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. Today, we're still going to deep dive into the minutia. We're going to talk about training methodology, but we're basically going to let Dani talk. I say this, but this isn't how it's going to work because I'm too verbose. We're going to let Dani talk for like 90% of the time. No, Skip can't shut his mouth long enough to let someone talk even 50% of the time. Plus, 55, but I'm amped up on a Monster Zero. In fact, I think you can see me shaking. Oh my God. Dr. Marv, you popped some caffeine. Dani, she's got energy forever. This should be a good show. I'm going to pass it off to you for just a second so that I can calm down, Dr. Marv. Take it.
All right.
Ask her something really funny.
Wow, that was pretty good. Like for winging it. Well done, sir. Well done. Yeah. No, so I'm super excited to have Dr. Dani on. I think the whole like expansion compression model, I've said it on other shows. I think I said it to Paul O'Neid on his show. I think you're the best in the world at applying it to bodybuilders and powerlifters, and it's pretty remarkable. I'm still wrapping my head around it because it is so different, and like you could almost call it like esoteric, the thinking man's approach. It's super different. I find it fascinating. I like a lot of the stuff that you have your folks do. I've talked about, I flat out stole, having your big, strong dudes and gals like doing walking lunges after a leg day to restore rotation and balance. Like that's been a game changer for folks. So I think you've added a lot of thinking outside the box, but also making it applicable, which is really hard to do in this space. So basically, I'm just going to nerd out for the next hour or so and kind of gather as much as I can from you, right? So, yeah, like, where do we want to start, Skip? Like, just basically how she approaches training?
I guess
like the 10,000 foot view.
I think people look, they might be, maybe I'm the one in the dark here, but they may not know anything about thoughts of the initial alpha male. Why is this little woman on this podcast talking about how could a woman know about training and especially training a male? And I relate that. I look at Dani like I look at my wife. My wife is like a dude with a vagina. They do dude shit. They're dudes. They'll punch you in the mouth if they need to. They can handle themselves. They don't. I mean, I want to say you don't need a man, but you don't need a man. Yeah, so basically. Your husband is like, he's got to be like, yeah, I'm here for, basically basic necessities. So, I don't have to cover her.
We kind of joke that like he married a dude and he is, I'm going to say this with all the love in the world. I adore my husband. I literally could not imagine him being any other person being married to anybody. Like I can't imagine being married to anyone else. It is a good thing that Dave and I are together because when it comes to like all like the girly things, like the man needs a helmet and a handler to like help him handle emotions and things like that.
Yeah. My wife would probably say something similar.
I mean that in the best way.
So if you go shopping for pots and pans, he'll be like, no, we got to go with these because these are the.
Actually.
So he's not as effeminate as me.
Stories? No. He loves his cooking things. Like he's so into his food and cooking. So he worked in. I could talk about Dave for like forever because he's literally the most interesting man in the world that I have met. He is incredible. But he is super into food stuff and cooking, and so anyway. But
There's
yeah,
the balance. You kind of balance everything out, and that's what a successful marriage. So basically, I just want to dig into like, is there a background here that's going to make people go, oh shit, or is it just experience? Is it a combination of both? But you're damn good at what you do, and just so you know, there's a lot of people talking about you right now in the training programming end of things. I've had ex-clients come to me, or we touch base, and I'm like, oh, how's everything going? Oh, I'm working with Dani. I'm like, damn, you too? Like a lot of people are gravitating, which is good. It's great. But they're gravitating towards and I'm like, something's going on here. So I'm going to talk to her. And then I thought, no, I better be smart about this and get her on the podcast. So I'm going to be listening along intently as well and asking questions right along with Dr. Marv. Let's dig into what that is. But what is your background first? I mean, what's there?
So I started, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I graduated in 2015, and I started doing online work like right then. And the thing at the time is that like I graduated PT school, and I was like, I'm going to go and like work in someone else's clinic. I want to go do like neuro work. Like what I do now is not at all what I had imagined for myself. It was one of those things that just kind of came about because there was a demand for it. People kept asking me. So eventually it was the kind of thing where like, because there was so much demand, it just kind of evolved naturally. I love training. I love doing the hard things. I grew up with a bunch of dudes. I have a big brother and always grew up with his friends. And so this like dude part of me just kind of came out and emerged with training. And I love it. You know, like it is weird. I think I'm probably one of the only women in this space who primarily coaches men, which is not normal. The only other one that I can really think of is Allie Gilbert, but she does it more from like the nutrition hormone side of things. But when it comes to training, injury management, and now some of the functional health side, you know, how I got to where I am, I have no idea how, except that I have kind of a no-nonsense, hardcore approach to pretty much everything that I do, which is very different than I think a lot of other women in the space put out. I never felt like I needed to earn my seat at the table. I was never out to be like that girl. I just wanted to do I wanted to do the hard things. I wanted to really embrace the kind of hardcore training style, and that's just kind of always been natural for me.
And you compete both bodybuilding and powerlifting. You have a background with Elite FTS. I mean, I saw you, quick little story. I met you at
It's
Swiss.
been a while.
Yeah. And I come in like essentially an 80-year-old man. I'm having lower back problems, all this mess. And I just look like crap. I haven't trained in like 3 months in here. Comes Dan. She's like, oh, I wanted to meet you. I'm like, no, you really don't. Like, I might as well be Ed Cohn at this point, minus the legend status, because Ed and I looked about the same age, or at least that's how I felt. So, but we're talking a little bit and kind of shooting the shit in the lobby. And then I listened to your presentation. And when Dr. Marsh is done with the presentation,
by the way.
What's that?
I wish I fell apart in, by the way.
Well, you know, that's the thing. That's what I'm leading up to. We get done with the presentation, and I talked to her almost immediately after, and she's just like, oh, that was horrible. And I'm like, no, it was pretty fucking good. Like, what the? Yeah. But that is that level you touched on earlier, that level of competitiveness, the expectations being so high. People walked away from that going, oh, that was good. You may have known or thought, okay, maybe it could have been better. I fell on my face. Nobody else sitting in that room felt that. So those are those high expectations. But the competing bodybuilding, the competing in what is that history there?
So like the reason Swiss was so important to me was it was like, for me, it was like this one golden opportunity to show everything that like, so Dr. Marv and I are familiar with similar clinical models, right? With like the compression, expansion, yada, yada. But like, that's such a reductionist view of what I do that to me, Swiss was like this one opportunity to put like my magnum opus out there. Like, this is everything, right? Like, guys, we don't have to think about a model. We don't have to be constrained by these like, you know, one or two pillars of how we think about things. Like, look at all the different ways we can solve this problem. And I just so badly wanted to put my heart out there that like, this is something that evolved not because I like learned a thing and wanted to apply it, or like went to a course and then applied it. This was like literally my heart and soul. I had poured into not only my own training, but I poured it into my husband. I poured it into my clients. I poured it into all these people who needed some solutions that like the courses weren't able to solve, or like, you know, a certain chiropractor, physical therapist weren't able to solve. They needed something different, because when you've trained the way that we have for so long, like we've broken enough rules where we have to admit that like we need a little bit of a different solution. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was like, I so badly want people to know that there's a better way to be thinking about things, that just because you're 40, you don't have to start thinking that like, oh, it's all downhill from here. Like I wanted people to be able to think about how many levers do we have to pull to find a solution. And how I got there was really just this like conglomeration of like my own training combined with medical history and injuries and things like that. And so that's why it felt kind of like a failure in that regard. But I started in powerlifting, TLDR. I got to be, I think at the time I was like top 3 in the country in the 123 class, which was pretty good. But then I tore my adductor tendon, and we didn't realize it at the time, but it was really just kind of the tissue degradation that I had when I tore that tendon was so severe that physicians were kind of like, there's something wrong with your tissue. Like, this wasn't just like a normal tendon tear. This is like everything in your body, in your MRI just looks bad.
Oh.
And so now in retrospect, I'm like, okay, well, that was probably lupus and all the connective tissue issues that come with that I didn't know about.
No.
Fast forward from there, I did come back and I did my first bodybuilding show after that. Did great, won my show. I also started to have some seizures and a bunch of medical issues that came up. And so really, like, when I look at my training, it was always a combination of like, what can I do that's going to let me get back to training hard? Because like not training hard, just quite frankly, wasn't an answer for me. And at the same time, like it's something that Dave and I do together. So there's this huge part of my life that was not like, I wasn't going to just not do it.
Right.
That was the time that Dave and I had to connect, and I absolutely refused to just, sit there and think that, well, they said I shouldn't squat more than 225 again, so I'm not going to. I came back and squatted 400. I think I was top 10 in the world at 123 and 132 both. And those were after the injuries, after the seizures. Did my first show, turned pro. My second show, my second season as a pro, I won Chicago Pro and went to the Olympia in 2023. So this is all really, really fast. And what was really cool about it for me was that I did everything kind of with my own like tinkering. I tinkered around with how do I want to train? How do I want to, improve these injuries? And really it came down to, I didn't like rehab. I literally just trained a little bit differently and it accomplished the same task. And so I think people a lot of times hear physical therapists and they're like, and Dr. Mark, you probably get this too, or like people are like, oh, I want to rehab this injury. And you're like, well, okay, can we think a little bit differently about that? And people are so stuck on training or rehab that they like create this battle in their minds over here. And it's like, bro, you don't got to fight that battle. Like, let's just turn this direction. Look at all these other levers we have. And that was kind of my Swiss talk. And so now, I work with a lot of guys who they've had one injury after another, and they're kind of at this point where they feel like, at some point they've run so far into a wall, they're out of options and they don't know what to do. And so they're in this place where they either train or they rehab. And I just get them off that altogether and get them looking totally another direction. That's kind of what
like the options are more than just a TheraBand or a barbell. Like people have this dichotomy. They're either doing TheraBand only or ignoring that and just beating themselves up, doing the same movements that cause elbow pain. But let me do flat barbell bench again, right? I totally agree. Like rehab is still training and still needs to be progressive, and training is rehab and prehab at the same time, right? So I totally agree. And people get stuck in black or white, and it doesn't have to be that way.
I think even more than getting stuck in black or white, it's like, I never post on Instagram, but I have a post made that I need to put out there today that people are out there arguing in black and white. I'm over here trying to paint with every color that I can.
Thank you.
That's
and I think that's probably a better way of thinking about it. And I don't know why, Marv, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. I don't know why people feel like it's either or, or even if they do start thinking in some sort of a gradient of like, okay, there's some shade of gray, like I don't know why they see themselves on that spectrum. I don't know if it's they're looking for a label because a label means that there's containment within that, and containment feels easier. Like we can package it better, or what it is, but it's boring. And I don't
Could it just be perception? Could it just be perception, though, that is what we have gotten from the medical community until it became a bit more progressive or a little bit more modernized? I've been around quite a while, so I know even going back 20 years, I feel like that's the message that I was getting. Oh, okay, it's you have to rehab, you have to, and I've used those labels myself, so I'm certainly interested in the levers. But I do want to throw, if I can, a question or two real quick, and they're relatively basic, but I really want to hear your answer, and I think that the viewers want to hear it. Number one, is training, or what are the differences, if there are differences, between training a male or a female?
There's lots of different ways that I could approach that.
Because part of me says there's no difference, and I think I've said that before, but I'm not the brains of the operation. I'm basing my opinion off of 41 years of training clients too, don't get me wrong. But I don't have, I'm the first to admit, I bring the experience to the table. I invite people with brains on the show to most of the time back me up, but other times go, yeah, that's just not right. I don't see it that way. And I'm cool with that. That's a good debate doesn't have the three of us patting each other on the back going, God, we're really smart. Yeah, you're smart too, man. Yeah. And me nodding at every single thing you say and you nodding at every single thing I say.
I know a thing or two about training, but I built a reputation in the bodybuilding industry for removing skin. If you have too much skin, call me. Remember, skin is overrated.
Well, I think that my brain goes a couple different directions there. Number one, what's practical versus like what's real. And they're different, right? Like practically, do we know that like, cool, like progressive overload, hormones. Yeah, okay, cool, whatever, that's easy. But in terms of like the nuance stuff, I think that's where it's always a question of like, what's important, like take the meat, leave the bone from the nuance stuff. And then can we use that to make the general better? I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here than I think most people would probably imagine. I think most people immediately go to like hormone, they go to fiber, like muscle fiber type, they go to some of the local, maybe local training adaptations to things like mitochondrial density, mitochondrial health, vascularization, like cool, all the exercise physiology stuff that we think about, right? I take the approach that in general, there's a structural bias change there. And this is just something I'm going to like kind of go off the cuff because I don't think anyone's really talked about it yet. Dr. Marv, you can kind of chime in on this too. Something I've noticed a lot is that in general with structural bias, when we think about this from the concept of different morphologies, different bone structures, things like that are going to have different changes to how we manage pressure, which sounds really nerdy. I get it. I could go on a nerdy tangent about that. I'm not going to. But we could think about this from the standpoint of if I've got this pelvis and this pelvis, they're going to be better at different things. On top of that, we have a thoracic diaphragm up here that's going to be influenced by the amount of upper body muscular development that's going to be creating downward pressure. A lot of men have a lot more upper body development. A lot of that is going to be due to some of the androgenic changes and things like that. But that's absolutely going to influence lower body training, which is going to have a rebound effect on upper body training too. So are there differences? Sure. But my question is more what's someone's inherent structure and how many layers of adaptation have they added on to that? And then kind of the model that I take with that is we generally have movements that are going to be high exchange, meaning they're going to add more layers of like compensatory adaptation, or high support, meaning they're going to work with that person's inherent bias and bring them back towards their baseline. I think that men and women in general are going to have a little bit different kind of structure with that. And when I say structure, I don't want you to just think about like, oh, like Q angle, because that is old news. I don't even think it's relevant anymore. I think that's stuff from the 90s that like we have enough evidence to be like, oh, that doesn't actually matter all that much, especially not for what we do, right? Like that, and that's the hard thing. Dr. Marv, you can probably speak to this too. We have all this literature that speaks to like, athletic development, not a trained individual within the bodybuilding space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because there's no studies on bodybuilders because there's no money in it, so nobody cares. I'm with you of, you need to treat anybody individually versus these generalizations that men and women are different. Yeah, we know there's differences, like duh, but the same principles of training still apply. It's still a muscle, right? It's still a joint. So yeah, the Q angles, if people don't know, it's pretty much the angle between your pelvis and your knee and what the angle is. And back in the day, they said that increased ACL risk in females, and females need to, not play any sports because they're going to shred their knee, because like it was all this fear mongering back in the day, right? Like, I think also that's why we have this separation of mainstream medical is squats are bad for your knees, running is bad for your knees. Then the people who are the biggest names online, they fearmonger like crazy. Like, I think Dr. Danny would agree. Like, I'm sorry, the one guy that his channel starts with an S and ends with a U, you have to single leg pistol squat before you put a bar on your back. What the fuck are we talking about? So that people come in and they're so afraid of, these made up things, or you need a 3-to-1 pulling to pushing ratio, or you're going to destroy your shoulders. Like, I'm sorry, that's hogwash. So the biggest name people are pushing these frameworks that make people feel reliant. It's great marketing and business. If I create this problem in your head that you have this issue and you can't train until you do my stuff, it sells 101. And I think that's what's causing a lot of the frustration online, and then people getting confused. So then when somebody like a Dr. Danny, or to a lesser extent myself, says, hey, like, why don't we just modify versus eliminate, and we could combine rehab and training in one, and they go together, and you don't have to have a rehab session and a training session, blend them together, right? Just because you're injured in one part of your body doesn't mean you could train the other and work on compensation patterns or faulty movements otherwise. Like, but again, you need to be following the right person's info, which, how do you navigate? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think, there's another component to this too. And when I think about training men versus training women and working with people and coaching in general, and you guys can both probably speak to this as well. Marv, what you mentioned about the fear mongering, I think one of the biggest jobs that we have as coaches is being able to identify and speak to our clients' fears. And I think that men and women have very different fears. And especially when it comes to the physical identity of being able to show up the way that you want to as a man. If you feel like you're running out of room and you're a ticking time bomb before you run into a wall, and you've only got, another year to really train hard, and then it's all done. That's a very different fear from a woman who feels like no matter what she does, she's just not enough. She's not strong enough. She can't, honestly, I don't understand a lot of, I talk to a lot of men. I understand this fear. That's a different one than what I think a lot of women deal with. And, I think that the more and more I get into this, like, people ask me all the time, like, oh, how do you use compression expansion? I'll be honest, I think the biggest part of my coaching isn't necessarily like the biomechanics. A lot of it is speaking directly to people's fears. And even a lot of the neurological principles and the psychological principles that change some of our motor patterning.
I think I can relate to both of those fears, quite frankly. I'm a man and I'm running out of time, yet I'm pretty effeminate, so I am concerned about that side. I carry a bag. Guys would yank
do you actually carry a bag?
I do carry a bag. Yes, and I get busted for it.
Wait, hang on. Do you have a collection of bags?
No, I have a collection of watches. I'm building my collection of watches, but I only have one bag. Yeah, I only have one bag.
Well, that's not too bad.
Now, it's not like a handle,
That's not too bad.
It's a sash. It's a small sash.
I was going to ask,
is it a
sash?
Yeah, my wife calls out, grab your sachet. And I'm like,
will you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you post a picture of you in your sachet and tag me in it so I can see it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. If it was close enough, I'd grab it right now.
I kind of want to match you. Is that weird? Can we have matching sachets?
Right, exactly. You might actually go, wow, that's a really nice bag. Oh, thank you.
Are you
That's
waiting
how
for
I
it?
am. I'm just weird like that, right?
I could just picture your wife rolling her eyes at that now. Like, don't get him started.
You know what? Yeah, exactly. But it does push her. I think the way I am as I get older, take on a little bit more of that compassion side. We have switched sides. I'm not going to get into my marriage right now, but she's comfortable with that. She's pretty much like, yeah, I've turned into the dude in this relationship. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to attempt to segue now. And I want to get to the levers. And Dr. Marv, cut me off at any time because I don't want to be, this interview is more your guys' wheelhouse. I'm just over here with a lot of questions. So I'm almost, I guess, representing the viewers in the sense that I'm coming in as a viewer more so than you two with the brains and being able to bounce things off of each other. But I'm thinking levers. So can you explain, Dr. Danny, Dr. Danny or Dr. LaMartina? Okay. Dr. Danny is shorter. I have a better chance of not screwing that up. So I'm going to go with that. But let's get into the levers. Can you explain your, try to kind of not encapsulate, but briefly your method of training, throw it at me so that I have a basic understanding of what that is.
Well, so from the listener standpoint, what's the popular narrative in bodybuilding right now? Progressive overload trumps all. Right?
Yeah, get huge. I want to get huge.
What other things?
Not recovery, volume.
Yeah,
all
not
that
screw myself
stuff.
up. Not get injured.
Okay.
We're not answering. She's looking for a specific, and I'm not giving it.
More what I want to do is I'm going to be honest. I sit here in the weeds all day. And we're like, oh, what if I talk about pressure gradients? And God, I have to forget that. I get so in my own brain that I forget what people's questions are. Right? I go to the gym at Destination. People ask me this question that's super simple, and I'm like, is this really what people are struggling with right now? So this is where your questions are so important because I sit here and I'm like, get all nerdy. God, I've used the nerd voice twice in the last 45 seconds. Happy Monday.
Well, I think what's on my brain is I'm thinking, what is making these guys gravitate towards you instead of pulling their alpha male position of, I need to go with a dude. She can't understand what I'm doing, that type of thing. What are you bringing to the table that is making them, the buzzards come over to?
I think if you watch any of my training videos, especially from the Olympia, I literally put myself, so most people need to work harder, right? I worked hard enough that I ran myself through that wall enough times that it's taken a good almost 2 years to come back to be able to train. But I think that I've got my husband is just he's a great proof of concept. He's huge. He's massive. Right now he's sitting about 270. He's got glute lines. He's a big boy and he's healthier than he's ever been. And a lot of that has been because I've been able to take some of this nerdy stuff and just make it really hard training for him. Right. I think people see me and they see that I talk about training more than I sit there and demonstrate oh, here's what a perfect kettlebell or arm bar looks like. Cool. How do I get a bigger chest?
Yeah.
Moreover, how can I get a bigger chest and still have healthy shoulders? Also, I want to be able to play with my kid. And I think that's really those are the people that I work with. They're not the 24-year-olds who, quite frankly, need to learn to run themselves on the wall. You need that season. So really what I do is I'm trying to break this down really simply. We think we've become so overly reductionist, and I think a lot of this comes through just a passive consumption from this. So many people get a passive fear message on here that as soon as you start presenting some other options to them, they realize that wow, there's an easier way to go about this, and it's full of possibility. Look how much, look at this green field we have, rather than this restriction of only do this. If you're not doing this, you're failing. If you're not doing this, you suck. I think that generally people are really tired of that dialogue. And I hate to say that that's a big reason why people come to me. But I think that's just it is I don't overcomplicate. I'm going to take people into the weeds if they need to get better. And I'm going to get really nerdy with them, but only if it actually leaves them better. I see no point in making things complicated for the sake of complicated. Now, that said, I do have a very different way of approaching things. So Dave, my husband, throughout one training session last week, we sat there and I toyed with pressure management, biomechanics, and biochemistry all in one session. I'm sitting there thinking about like a delivery versus a utilization limitation of oxygen intramuscularly. Like, I don't know how many people are thinking about that, but is that going to influence if we're going to do like a straight set of 20, or a cluster set, or myo reps, or rest pause? Yeah, like all those things matter, right? And so when we think about building the system, I think people have gotten so stuck on like progressive overload, 2 sets of 8 to 10, 2 sets of 8 to 10. It's like, okay, number one, that is so boring. That is so freaking boring. So boring. But it's also super restrictive. And I think the more you restrict people, it does something neurobiologically to us that fires up our limbic system. And as soon as our limbic system gets fired up, everything else is going to kind of fall apart. I've done seminars where like I've literally had someone on the table, I'll muscle test them and like things fire great. And I'll go and I'll say a bunch of mean things to them. I felt really bad doing this live actually, because it was someone who I really, really like. He's a national level bodybuilder. He's amazing. I said a bunch of really mean things to him and I muscle tested him right after and everything fell apart. So like, it's so important that I think that the way we approach our clients as coaches, that changes everything. I mean, you change the dialogue, you change the narrative, and things are just going to start to move better. Now, are there some important biochemical and biomechanical and, training decisions that need to be made with that? Absolutely. But when it comes to like, what's this, the sizzle and the steak, I think it's a love for training and it's a creativity that comes with that process. I will always find a way to let training be the thing that makes you better. I have a lot of people doing like myo reps on, like one guy that you're talking about that's working with me right now. He's got myo rep and hack squats. And this is a guy that's got like 10 years of like horrendous back pain. He's got one of the worst lateral shifts I've probably ever seen in my life. Like, you watch him walk and it's like his pelvis just goes like this. There's no motion there at all, right? And most people are not going to be like, hey, let's get you doing some like myo reps or rest pause work on your lower body training day. But that's what he needs, because he needs to be able to not only find a good position. Once we've built that proficiency, can we then build in that proficiency to maintain within a high threshold training environment? Okay, great. Then can we make that work over time? I mean, there's so many other ways that we need to build someone to be more durable. And if we can do that under load and let training be that solution, man, that's freedom for these guys.
Okay, so with the training programming, what I think I'm hearing you say is you're individualizing each client, obviously, with their training, but you're almost kind of reacting. You're being reactive with the structure and with your training instruction versus proactive, where here's the program that I want you to do. I'm going to set this program. It's more, it's based on structural issues, potential injuries or past injuries, what you see, whether it be gait or hips or alignment, or am I reading into it too much?
Oh, there's more to it. No, there's a lot. Okay. I mean, I'll be honest, the average new client intake for me takes about 6 to 8 hours.
Okay. All right. It's not,
you give that to most online coaches.
Yeah. And when you see me do this and I'm looking down, I'm just taking notes so that I don't forget something when I come back, because there is something, and Dr. Marv, remind me, I do want to get into because you were talking about pulling back. You know what? Let's do it right now. You were talking about, you need to train hard, but I think the viewers can relate to that. Again, I'm here as a representative of the viewers.
This is what I love getting into. Let's solve the problems.
Yeah. And I put myself in this category. My brain has been wired through old head mentality of the work ethic of you can't, when in doubt, work harder. So as I have trained for 41 years, I feel like the people who train longer develop this ability. It's almost like we're desensitized to hard training. It becomes to us easy if we're not going above and beyond constantly. And that, at some point, I feel, for me, has created this essentially poor recovery. So I heard you reference, and I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but I heard you reference being able to pull back because of your own hard training, where you drive yourself into the ground, which is what I've done several times. And I just sit there and shake my head like, how could this happen? So I feel like what you're saying is there are a lot of people do need to train harder, but then other people need to be able to pull back to where they're still training hard. But relatively speaking, and it might not be a 10 for me, it might be a 7 or 8 on my scale, where that could be an 11 on somebody else's scale who isn't as experienced and hasn't desensitized themselves to those levels of intensity. And since I have done that, even though it's been a few months, I see that the recovery is better, the HRV is better, my sleep score is better, and more importantly than that, because it's much better to feel good than to, or much better to look good than to feel good. It's an old SNL sketch, but it's that's ultimately at the end of the day, I'm progressing better with arguably less effort and less intensity. It's still there, but relative to what it was before, I am pulling back. So that's what I hear you saying. Am I just misconstruing?
I would say it's different. So I think there are
Okay.
two separate issues there. So one is, I think you're right. I think a lot of people, when you've been training for a long time, you start to just chase hard for the sake of hard.
Mhm.
For me, it was like on a leg day, if I wasn't having, I'm not exaggerating here. Ranson, my husband, and myself, Ranson is the other bodybuilder talk about. We would basically plan on my hard leg press set, I was going to snooze afterwards. And it would take 20
Jesus.
minutes. Yeah, and this was like normal, right?
Okay,
Like,
note to self, I don't train as hard as I thought I did. Anyway.
well, and keep in mind, like, this is like a hot autoimmune stuff going on underneath and some other things too.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a separate issue, right? We chase hard for the sake of hard, and our perception of that, you get much better at it. Like, it's just like stress perception, right? Like, the more stress you have in your life, you get better at managing it. Little things don't bother you so much.
Well, and it's psychologically fulfilling. It's psychologically rewarding,
Totally.
where it's not arguably rewarding when it comes to the recovery and the progression.
Right. And so I think this is where it's a little bit different, where there's a difference between like, okay, I'm only going to like a 7 or 8 versus like, hang on, let's recalibrate this all together. And I'll use my husband again as an example. On the Arsenal hack squat, he can take 9 plates, like really, really well. I'm not just talking about like playing and bang 9 plates. I'm talking like slow control, pause, really powerful but controlled concentric. I mean, it's the kind of thing where you're like, how many is he on there? This last weekend, I literally humbled him with 3 1/4. It's not like it was any easier on him, but we've put the focus on different things. And so here's an example where he has a history of knee issues. With his powerlifting background, he's really good at bracing by basically just pushing everything forward, internal pressure management. And it's inhibited his sweeps from going the way they need to because of some positional changes and a whole bunch of other stuff. So given that at some point we want to have kids and it's important to both of us that he can be mobile and be with them, it's kind of like, okay, well, how can we tick the boxes of training now, recalibrating the system so that this forward stuff that it really throws off his back shots in bodybuilding because he can't open up if he's always forward anyway, while still wanting to grow a sweep and tick the box of training hard. Well, I started looking at a lot of internal pressure management stuff. We added some tempo. We added a concentric tempo. We added no lockout. We started, once he built that proficiency, it was like, great, now let's take that for a longer set. Okay, now let's myo rep that. Great, now we're going to hit the same volume of myo reps, but in fewer mini sets. So you can see there's a progression model built in. But the proficiency of like, can we first learn to manage his internal pressure while demolishing his quads? Can we do that at the same time? And then move that forward. But we can do that with any movement. Another great, does that make sense?
It does make sense. I was just holding back on the, what do you call the, I want to refer to it as, and it could be wrong, intrathecal pressure or intra-abdominal pressure. What is that term?
The reason I try not to use the term intra-abdominal pressure is that most people's brains instantly go towards like brace. And it's just lock everything down as hard as you can. And the more you lock everything down, there are a couple of things that happen. You're going to upregulate a bunch of muscles that make it hard to actually move. The other thing is it's so associated with pushing out into a belt that it creates a big change in the internal biomechanics of how things actually move. And one of the things that I think people really misconstrue or kind of forget is that we've got fluid on our muscles and we want to be able to move that fluid around. And the more we just put a lot of external pressure through lats, through erectors, through external obliques into that system, there's a chain reaction that has to happen where a lot of other muscles have to upregulate, and you're shortchanging the amount of length and subsequent contraction you can get on the muscles that are. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot that happens in the pelvis with the pelvic floor that has to be able to kind of catch and rebound from that too. So when I talk about internal pressure management, the way that I talk about it with people is like, you've got this water balloon, right? Now, if you've got a water balloon that's just pushed forward how is that going to change everything else in the system? So it's just a little bit of a different way of explaining it rather than just talking about, like, you know, the Coke can analogy, which I think is a little bit too rigid. What I like about the water balloon is you can visualize how that's going to kind of change shape as the muscles around it push on.
Okay.
The other thing I like about that example is that it's inherently got some like mobility to it. One of the big changes that I see over time in people like yourself who have been able to basically run through that training wall and just do a lot of hard things is that there's a massive change in our connective tissue behavior. That connective tissue behavior is a big part. And I'm not just talking like tendon behavior. I'm talking like even intramuscular fascia, which is highly innervated. And guess what? Talks to the brain, which is going to drive a lot of descending output control. So you can see there's a lot of kind of like more fluid concepts that need to come into things. And that's why I honestly, like, I hate just the whole, like, just lock in. This is where you train your lats. Like, number one, that's not intellectually honest. Number two, it's boring. And number three, it actually creates a lot of problems. I think we're going to see a lot of people who are now between 25 and 30. We're going to see this generation of lifters experience the problems that you experienced, but they're going to experience it probably 15 years earlier than you did because of the training style that's been perpetuated.
Okay.
And I'm predicting that now.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Dr. Marv, I don't want to be the one asking all the questions. I apologize.
Why don't we break down the whole lateral shift thing you mentioned with that guy? Because I think that's an example that a lot of people know exactly what we're talking about. And then, you know, that's going to, at least how I, you know, and I approach it differently than you, right? So I'm going to approach a lateral shift way differently than you. So I figure we could both talk about how we would address that to show different approaches, because I'm sure mine's going to be way more simplified than yours.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
Probably not.
So do you want to go
let's hear
first?
this first.
Okay,
No,
so typically, right, if you're going to hip shift away, you're shifting away from the hip that has less internal rotation. So if you're shifting to the left, your right's usually lacking internal rotation. I find that right foot, typically they can't get that arch to drop or pronate, right? So with anatomy in motion, which is my model for the lower body from Gary Ward, your foot's got to alternate between a high arch lock position, aka supination, when the whole leg rotates externally, and an unlocked foot position, the arch drops, technical term is pronation. The whole leg rotates internally while you're shifting away from the side of internal rotation. Then if somebody's, you know, grossly restricted, then yes, I'm going to need their pelvis to start to move better and expand so they could rotate it. So I'm always going to put them on their side to expand it front to back. But you get the hip moving better, you work on the foot, it's magical what you could do. I'm a big DNS guy for bracing because that model worked for me and changed my life, and I get good results with it. It's slightly different than yours, but again, there's multiple paths to the same top of the hill. And then if you work on that, it's a magical what you could do. And then making sure people are pushing off the foot tripod at the bottom that I've talked about multiple times. That Skip is finally starting to embrace after resisting me for 30 plus shows. Like, that's how I address it is like, it's, you know, the hip issues originally stemming from the foot, you work on both, it's magical what you could do. And then, having intent on the negative is going to be important, right? So if you could teach somebody to engage their hamstrings, it's magical what'll happen with it. Because that's just, people just dive bomb and then nobody ever looks at the foot. Like for me, I explained with patients, you know, foot's the driver of the lower body, the rib cage is the driver of the upper body, right? I don't look at the pelvis as much as you do, but I recognize that as something I am currently working on understanding better. And I am more than okay of saying, this is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm working at. I have no problem saying that because who gives a shit as long as you're getting the results. Right. So that's how I kind of look at it. So that's my 2 cents.
I mean, like, I love the way you talk about it too. And like, for what it's worth, like, I would love to take DNS. Every time I see it, I'm like, it looks super effective. And it just makes a lot of sense to me in terms of integration. I feel like my model, honestly, I think people have the assumption that I've taken all these courses and like super educated. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really just, I love to train. Every solution I found has come through training. your solution was a lot more complicated than mine. A lot more
Okay.
complicated than
All
mine.
right.
In a good, I mean, like in a good way, right? Like, no, I'm sitting here
Mhm.
thinking, like, okay, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I take the standpoint that, like, first off, I think a lot of people are too obsessed with symmetry.
Good
Way
point.
too obsessed with it. The human body is not symmetrical. You're never going to be symmetrical. However, we want to see the stimulus at which that asymmetry kind of gets louder. We want to see the stimulus for that increase, right? Like if you're asymmetrical when you're like doing, I don't know, something really, really low bandwidth, that's probably a problem. Or if you're asymmetrical at rest and it gets worse very quickly under load, that's a problem. But yeah, I mean, like, I think foot contacts are super important. Generally, what I look at is like, again, okay, what does someone's structure tell me they should have? Do they have that? Yes or no? If yes, then I'm going to try and give them what they don't have. If they don't have what they should have, I'm going to give them that first, just based on their structure. And what I mean by that is like, I'm going to bring pelvis back. Someone's pelvis shape is like this. They're going to have a different inherent structure through their hip. Femur, knee, tibia, foot, just a little bit different bias at rest. Nothing like crazy, right? If they don't have that, maybe I want to look at giving them that back first, really simply. But my goal is always like, how non-PT can I make things? Like, how much can I get people just training? And maybe that's because my business model. So let me back up. We moved to Texas at the time. I was doing part in person. I was running space at a gym and part online. We moved to Texas and I went purely online. And so my business model has basically evolved to be purely online. No, if I were in person, would I love to be nerding out about foot contacts and foot shape change and all of these things? Absolutely. I've got some brilliant friends that when I'm really stuck, I call them, and you're on that list. But when it comes to like the lateral shift right now, it's like, okay, how symptomatic are they? What can we do in training that's going to facilitate getting them the opposite direction? And then what can we do? How far can we bring them back towards that shift without it being a problem? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So would you be doing like unilateral work before getting them on the hack squat?
Not
Or would you-
necessarily. It depends.
Okay. Yeah.
I think one of the big things that I use more than almost anything, especially because being remote, I'm restricted in terms of, number one, I'm not getting real time feedback about people's PT.
Mm-hmm.
So when I write programs for people, like
Yeah.
they got some like correctives they need to do beforehand,
Mhm.
usually, and then they've got their session, and then sometimes I'll have people do like something at the end to just offset whatever like bilateral cranked upness. Such a technical term happens. Sometimes
but it's
I'm
understandable.
really smart.
Yeah.
But it's understandable. I
Sometimes
get
I'm
what you're saying.
so smart.
Yeah.
But generally what I do is like I'll use session structure and manipulate the crap out of that to get them moving in the right direction. So I've got a guy right now who has some shoulder issues. He really wants a bigger chest. He's also narrow, super compressed, doesn't have a lot of room up here. So if he can't feel his chest, I know why, right? Well, what do I have to manipulate? I've got his session structure. He's in contest prep. So I can't be like, okay, I need you to do 45 minutes of rolling around on the ground and then, short session and then your 50 minutes of cardio. That's not going to work. But what I can do is manipulate body position throughout the session and structure it in a way that's going to basically offload a lot of these superficial. So I'll back up and give another concept. The more upregulated or more like active, very, very large muscles are. I think lats, pec, erectors. This is for you, Skip, because Dr. Margie, you're probably sitting like, yeah, I know. The more active those get, the harder it's going to be for your body to have the joint motion that's needed to move well. This motion, the ball and socket needs to kind of roll and spin and glide again. These joints are highly afferent, meaning they give input to the brain. That brain is going to give a lot of input about what we're permitted to do. If this doesn't move well, you're going to have less elongation and contraction of the muscles surrounding that, which means less pump. Probably means less stimulus. Probably means that whatever motion you do have, you're cranking on the joint rather than getting like the muscle elongating and shortening and tension on the muscle. So what we can do is manipulate the session structure to basically play to whatever's happening superficially. So if someone comes in and they already have a bias for a lack of external rotation, okay, well, I'm going to do some primers throughout the session to give them a little bit more space to kind of open up into, right? Great. That makes a lot of sense. What if I also structured their session so that maybe they're starting with, I don't know, something like a decline press? I think decline pressing gets hated on so much.
Thank you.
I put it first.
Great way.
Yes.
Yes. Let's
Yes.
invert them. Get things moving this direction. Cool. Then something that I've actually really started loving lately is this like, it's actually a friend of yours. I had him do an incline med ball press where he's in hook lying and he's got, dumbbells. He's doing incline press. But then we took that to a fly to get rib cage and pelvis in a position where everything can actually open up and we can more likely get uniform lengthening through the pec. And then we can go to a flat press. And so going from like this angle to more here, you can just manipulate different positions. Now my husband's the opposite. He's got to start flat and then go to incline. Oh. And so you can kind of see how someone, again, this probably isn't the time and place to get really into like the nitty gritty of how and why we make those decisions. But I think it's really important for consumers to know that I think most of us have a good feel for what we actually need. The problem is that we get on social media or we get on YouTube or we get on somewhere that tells us that we're wrong.
Yeah.
Skip, like over the last 5 years, and you could talk about this from your recent coaching experience too, and like having handed off the reins for the first time in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we start to assume that like we're wrong about something and we hand off the reins and we break that trust with ourselves, how often is that going to lead to something that's actually net positive versus like a net negative?
Oh, yeah.
If you're not in that 25 to 30 range where you've not been in the game long enough to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that comes back to a lot of doubt. It's the old cliche of the people who know the least are the most confident with the information they're put out.
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Exactly. And as you gain that knowledge and experience that you have that starts to, get above the, above the average person, and you start to get to that level, then you start questioning, what do I really know? And it can backfire on you. So I completely agree. And I know myself, I tell clients all the time, I don't like to choose the exercises that they do. I want to choose the angle or the approach to the muscle, or I want to guide them in that direction. But whether it's this row or that row, what feels good? What feels good. I don't know what that feels like, but a lot of people want that black and white, and it's difficult to, I can give it to them, but I'm almost turning around going, it doesn't matter. Like I wasted my time in a sense because I'm giving you an exercise that you may not connect with based on your structure and just based on how you feel that exercise. So it's a tough one.
How game changing would it be for you if you had a system to say, okay, based on what this person looks like, I can predict which one of these rows is going to be better for them. And I can push them right up to the limit of where things are symptomatic because I'm going to be able to catch that first domino before it falls and bring them back the other direction.
Right.
Because that's the periodization model that I use with people. And I think that's the thing is like, it should be about connection, right? I think unfortunately so many people in our space right now, and unfortunately there are people who actually are smart and can trust themselves because they've been training a long time. I think so many people have forgotten that there's a reason that certain things feel good for them or don't. Because what they see is someone that basically says, well, if you're not doing it this way, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's like, oh, well, crap, if I'm wrong, well, this person's right. No. Why is this person right? Okay, let's take the meat and leave the bone, right? What principles are they operating off of? They're operating off of progressive overload, great. They're operating off of what they think to be a good line of pull for their structure, great. But if you as a coach, and this is something like I so badly want to put a coursework about this for bodybuilding, if you as a coach could literally predict when someone was going to be able to get injured because they've overloaded a movement that was maybe not great for them so far. Like for me, I'm terrible at hinging. I'm probably never going to have a great hinge. But anyone who knows me knows I freaking love deadlifting. Now, what if I knew exactly when I needed to pull that back to prevent that first domino from falling? Could I then just structure my training around that?
Right.
And when I get to that point, could I then modify that movement and go to something totally different that just seamlessly blends the years so that I'm never really uphill against an injury. I'm also never really uphill against like fatigue because chances are those things are going to correlate. But unfortunately, instead of just saying like, there's a reason why certain things work and don't, people have just gotten so extreme in saying this works, this doesn't. And I just, again, this kind of comes back to what we were starting and talking about at the beginning with training or rehab. Everything is so black and white. And maybe you get the creative thinker who's out there being like, oh no, there's shit gray.
Right.
Stop having that conversation altogether. You don't need to entertain that conversation.
Well, I
Does
think
that
even
make
if
sense?
people do start to get those signs and they're listening to the feedback, there still is that we're in an industry of more is better. It doesn't matter what it is. More gear is better, more cardio is better, more
Yeah.
food is better, more training is better, more intensity, volume, you name it, it's better. So you also have that battle, or the battle of the lack of ability to positively react to the feedback that you're getting versus getting it. I consider it greed. It's almost you're getting greedy, or you're making it practical. Well, I have a vacation in 3 weeks, so I don't want to pull back now. I want to do that while I'm on
Oh, we
vacation.
rationalize it.
Sure,
we rationalize it all the
absolutely.
way.
As much as we rationalize hunger and being depleted, it's a funny thing. I'm just depleted. No, you're just really hungry. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So those things, it's very easy, and I think that's why it's so important. And this is pretty obvious, but why it's important to let someone else at some point. And for some people, it needs to go longer, but at some point, control that training and control the diet so that you have that. I don't want to say black and white, but you have that control, and your emotions aren't involved with the decisions that you're making. And the reason I say that for both training and nutrition is because with nutrition, you have that concept of the justification with eating versus depleted, or, I'm just eating too much. I don't need to eat this much. But then when it goes to training, it's, I can go longer. I don't want to lose my gains on a deload, that sort of thing. If I pull back, I'm not going to grow. There's just these things that we have wired into our brain, or social media has wired into our brain, hardwired, that it's sometimes difficult, especially with the lack of experience or the lack of knowledge. I mean, I've referred to the industry, I don't know how many times, like to the giant sea of turds, and I'm going to continue to refer to it like that, because I just feel so badly sometimes for people who come into the industry and they're looking for someone to work with, and they're just looking out over this massive sea of shit, and they don't know who knows what they're talking about and who has no clue.
And
So
it is a
it's
game of
difficult.
marketing. It's a game of marketing, and the best marketers typically are the most simplistic. I'm going to say it again, fear mongering. Like, my number one message that I say to every single patient: you're not broken, you're not fragile. You ask any one of my patients, I say that every single session, no matter what, because they've been taken advantage of flat out. And then who's somebody going to gravitate towards? Dr. Dani, who's saying, hey, we've got to figure out all these levers, blah, 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 versus the guy who goes, this is the only way you ever need to train your chest, doing A, B, and C. Like, now the older, more wiser demographic, or longer training history demographics, probably going to reach out to a Dr. Dani or myself. While where's the broccoli head kid going to go to? The never go over 8 reps, or you're going to destroy your calcium ions from fatigue and blah, 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 right? So, like, that's what we're combating. And you've better pick the right person to learn from. But if it sounds too good to be true, if it's oversimplistic, if it's always ultimatum, if it's never, I don't know, run. And I'll get off my soapbox.
No. I'm right there with you. And I think that, even for those of us who do know better, like, let's say we have a coach and we say, hey, like, I can do more. The reality is most of us operate, at least to some degree, off of a fear orientation. I
would
can
agree
do
with
more.
that.
Where does that come from? Or
I don't want to miss
if
out.
I don't do enough, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to lose my gain. I don't want to backtrack. I don't want to. There's so much fear. And I'm convinced, I am absolutely convinced you cannot change my mind. I don't know anyone that could change my mind on this. That if we as coaches can come alongside and figure out how to not fix the fear, but if we can make it kind of safe to say, okay, what if?
Empowering is the word that comes to mind. Empowering your clients.
I think there's something
difficult
because
thing
a lot of
to
people are resistant to that.
Yes.
And you want to empower someone, you just tell them, like, tell someone who's been in, like, I'll use myself as an example. Um, I have come back from more injuries. I have come back from more health issues where I have scrapped my way out of as an athlete, as gritty. You tell me you're going to get it back. This time you'll get it back. You could do it again. You try to speak hope to me in the place that I'm at right now. Good freaking luck. I'm going to say, you don't get it. You don't understand. You don't see the hole I've clawed myself out of so many times already. But I think there's a different message that we can speak. And I think it's a message of courage. Courage and smarter thinking. And, I don't know how we do that. I think there's a fine line on where our scope of practice is, right?
Yeah, true. But being supportive or trying to motivate isn't really outside of our scope of practice either. So,
right.
I'd put, like I said before, Dr. Mark, the gut biome thing is walking the line. We're putting our toe up to the line as far as our scope of practice when we get into those things. And that is not to say anybody specific. There are people who do it and they've got themselves covered and they're doing it the right way. But there are a lot of people who don't, and they're putting their toe over that line into what I consider to be the medical community, and they don't have the justification. They don't have the credentials to be able to do that. And my concern, if I have a fear, is that will draw more attention to our, demographic as trainers, and we're going to be scrutinized more because I've said for years, someone is going to, and they already have, so someone is going to kill somebody, and that is going to regulate in some fashion our industry, which arguably maybe should be. But then when we get into things like regulation, then you start to deal with certs, and you start to deal with, then people will have that academic, or I say not academic, but that background that they need to have, but they don't have the experience to come along with. So where are we? At the end of the day, I don't know if we're in any better position. But I do want to say real quick, you had decrescendo. This is important to me. It's not going to be important to anybody else, none of the viewers, but me. You decrescendo. Did you catch this, Dr. Mark? She decrescendoed when she said the F word. And I do that. When I say the F word, I don't typically say it these days. I decrescendo. Everybody knows what I said, but they didn't hear it. So there's another parallel. We're right there, Danny. We're right there. We're on that same wave.
And I just say it. I just say it.
Yeah, you just let it go.
I used to.
Oh, I dropped them left and right. I still will drop them every now and then. Don't get me wrong.
Again, as a female in this space who coaches men, it's weird. I used to feel like I had to construct how I showed up, and I've just realized that when I just kind of let go, things just go better. But it's really interesting, I think, as coaches, especially when I was talking about this with Dave the other day. We get on social media and I'm sure you guys see this. It's you get on, you're oh, if you're not having these ridiculously huge months, you're failing as a coach, or if you're not scaling, if you're not and it's all these things that basically tell you that anything that you have is not enough. You have to have more.
Right.
And I think that unfortunately that comes out to our athletes too, and that there's a lack of contentment with where we are right now. And this comes back to what you were saying, Skip, with at some point, when do we say enough is enough? And at what point do we just rest in safety with that? I did enough work today. Just because I can do more doesn't mean I need to.
I've said that a million times. It's not about what you can do in the gym. It's what you can recover from. And there's a big difference. We can all do a few more sets, but you may not recover from them. So at the end of the day, it's about recovery. Can I come back? I want to come back to the super compression. You said something earlier about and I want to remember, it was something about a pressing movement. I think a dumbbell press movement where you said they were super compressed, and then you went to the flies where they were open. And I could see how, the flies will open up, but what do you mean by super compressed?
I already see Marv getting ready to. Can I get your take on this first? I feel like I've done a lot of talking, and I'm that's one of those questions.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Talk.
No, I want to hear hers, but because my plebeian, simple-minded understanding is, as we get bigger and stronger, we typically get compressed, especially front to back. So the rib cage is compressed, the shoulder blade can't move, right? We lose rotation. Then, like she talked about earlier, your brain doesn't trust your shoulder to have this nice 180 degrees of range of motion. It's going to try to protect yourself. And that's why you keep doing your dumbbell presses and you maybe feel a little bit of your pec, but you typically feel it right there and it hurts like hell the next few days afterwards. And it's because, you're not able to get a fully lengthening, shortening. You're not able to get your sternum up. You can't get your shoulder blades back, so you're not putting strain on that bicep tendon, because every time you come down, it's rolling forward and compressing and putting pressure off the pec and on the bicep tendon. And then, your poor infraspinatus is trying to stabilize on the backside, and then the you're right? Like, it's that thing.
See,
and then it's like, every
that's
time the next day my
way more
shoulders hurt.
complex. I'm a big meathead here. I like getting huger muscles.
Yeah.
HYUGER. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Huger. We talk at home about getting skinny huge. Scooge. So, when we're talking about compression, this could be 25 different conversations. It's akin to asking, like, training upper body. You're like, what do you mean by that? That could be anything. The context in which I was speaking about that is, in general, the way I explain this to people is your body, instead of, let's imagine you have a breaker box, right? But instead of an on-off switch, you've got like 60 bajillion dimmer switches, right? Now, every single training day, compounded over time, is going to change those dimmer switches. In general, one of the things that I see is that those dimmer switches for a lot of big muscles, pecs, traps, lats, erectors, get kind of upregulated. What that does over time is change the way that certain bones and joints sit relative to each other. And they also change the degree of motion that we have in smaller joints. So I'll come back to the water balloon analogy, because I think people can imagine fluid like water, right? Air is fluid. When we breathe, we should have a lot of segmental mobility between our ribs, between our sternum. Like, there should be this, like, have you guys seen those big, like, tensegrity balls? That couple talks about them.
Yeah.
I haven't been to his course yet, Marv. So if I'm, like, doubling on anything, or if you've got something to add, like, throw one of these so that we can get your insight here too. But people forget that we basically should have that same capacity down to our molecular structure. We learned sliding filament theory. We now know there's a molecule called titin that literally adds a 3-dimensional helical structure to our muscles. So everything that's like, oh, we're linear, we're not. Like, we're not. We'll stop. Stop thinking that way. So when we have this kind of upregulation of all those muscles in the breaker box, and things start to change position, I'm actually a great example of this. You can see this a lot in actually female competitors who are like, they kind of live here, and when they hit their front relax, they just don't have that fullness. And you're like, is that external rotation? No. That's that these muscles here have closed the space, and we can no longer find all of that, the ability to fill this part from the inside out. Because that's really what this is. Our lungs should basically stretch from the inside out. When we breathe in, all of the muscles and all the joints across the back of our spine, our rib cage, our sternum, all this should basically inflate from the inside out. When a lot of those muscles get upregulated, we're not going to get the same uniform length change throughout that muscle for a couple of reasons. But when we're not getting that same uniform length change, that's a lot of times why people can't get like the pump or the connection. Sometimes it's in relationship to joint position, which again is like chicken or the egg. Could be either one. It's probably both. Doesn't really matter. We know we need to address them both anyway, right? And so for the example I was speaking of earlier, by putting someone on a decline first, we're taking that water balloon and creating more expansion. Or again, remember that earlier on, I was talking about how a lot of men with upper body development are basically squeezing from the top down. So they've got all this activation up here. The thoracic diaphragm is stuck down here. If we invert them, all this can start to expand again. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we can on short acute levels, create a little bit of that arthrokinematic change. Now remember, small changes, like I've got years of working in a clinic in a table test where like these small changes literally are the difference between having so much gross motion and not having any at all. So if we can use training to invert them, to create a little bit of that, are we still getting more compression up here? Probably. Sure. Is that a perfect solution? No. Are the PTs who are like really in Bill's model probably looking at me like, oh my God, probably. I have a lot of people who tell me I do things wrong. Sure. But do my people get bigger muscles and still be able to play with their kids? Absolutely.
Right.
So then we take them to a position where they've got a nice stacked rib cage and they're more likely to be able to get full opening along the expansion, like that full. I use the example of like if you go to buy sausage at the grocery store, if you were to cut the sausage casing and the meat like comes out through the casing, that's what we want in training. And that's basically what our connective tissue does. But we have to be able to have the fluid management to allow that first. Does that make sense?
It's good. It's good shit. I don't decrescendo when I say shit. Only when I use the F word. Look, there's
Marv,
a
is there
lot.
anything-
Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
like, yeah, like compression is typically how we get stronger. Expansion is typically how we maintain or regain mobility. And you want this blend
that's a
of
good way of
it.
saying it.
And ideally, the bigger folks are going to need to prep expansion before the training session, during, and possibly after, because otherwise they're just going to keep getting compressed. You don't want to take it all the way together because then you won't be strong, right? But like, they're going to go back to compression just from muscle tone, just from lats and pecs and erectors being always cranked on, right? So that's how I typically explain it. And I do not go into the depth I've been saying on this podcast. Like, I don't talk like that in office. You know, I have my ribcage model and I go, look, if you're compressed front to back, you're not going to rotate. We're not going to be able to move the shoulder blade. If I could expand you front to back, if I could get certain areas to expand, I should have brought it. It's at my office to expand compression expansion from Zach. He uses those stress balls. So you squeeze it, so then it expands on one side and then it compresses on the other. I've shown it on the show. So that's what I think that's the easiest way to explain it in 10 seconds is I grab my stress ball, I put it inside my rib cage model and I squeeze. I go, look, we're going to use this drill or this position to expand this part of the rib cage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I show them before and after, because if you do a lot of the PRI or Zach or Bill breathing drills, it's not very eventful, right? They're like, I'm breathing in these weird positions, but you show them the before and after, and they go, holy crap. Then you get the buy-in and then they do it in the gym and they're only going to spend 5 to 10. My system is you do 5 to 10 minutes of specific mobility work.
Like positional.
Yes, correct. And it's typically starting on the ground, usually sideline, trying to get front to back. You do your self tissue work. You get the rib cage moving better. Then in between your warm-up sets, then do all your stuff to get your traps and your serratus active, right? But work that into your training session to where, yeah, I do, a warm-up set and then I immediately work on serrate, kind of blending it in. So you're only spending maybe 10 minutes, but it's 5 minutes straight. And then you're working in the other 5 minutes as you're warming up. So by the time you're ready for your work set, not only do you have the areas expanded better, so you have better motion, all the stabilizers are firing. You have that mind to muscle connection, right? You're getting upward rotation of the scap so you don't keep pissing your shoulder off every time you go overhead and wondering, well, everybody says to get that stretched lat, but I can't at the top. Like, that's how I approach it.
I'm really curious, and I don't know how and when this happened, but people ask me all the time about like compression expansion stuff. And the reality is, honestly, like I'm trying to move away from it because I think in the next 6 months to a year, it's going to have the same effect that PRI had, which is people are going to be really campy about it. It's going to be weird. It's going to be the kind of thing that's super divisive. And instead of being able to apply the principles, it's become about the camp. So I don't really talk about, every time I come on a podcast, people are like, so compression expansion. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like, how about somatosensory like development? Do we not think the pump is important for improving someone's somatosensory like ability to connect with the muscle? Like, when did we become so fixated on like, the biomechanics? We forget about all the other things that are important. You know what I mean? And I only bring this up because like, I know I can say that with you guys. And I don't know. There's so many other tools that I use. And I think that's kind of what I was talking about earlier when I was like, man, like I'm out here trying to paint with every color that I can. Because the bigger someone is, like trying to get Dave to expand anywhere, he can expand, but it's all anteriorly. Can he expand posteriorly? Like, no. So if I focus on that, I'm literally like, I'm hamstringing his progress because I'm married to one paradigm.
Thank you.
And
so,
I think
like,
that first...
So like
Yeah, no, go ahead.
everybody wants to fall into a camp. It's dogmatic is where we would like to be as human beings. I think the secret weapon of somebody like you, and I never talk highly about myself because I'm a perfectionist and I always need
You
to be
should.
better. Yeah.
You
but
should speak highly of yourself, though.
I think what I'm good at is I could pick and pull from all these different camps and blend it together. So when people shadow, they go, well, what certs have you taken? I haven't taken that many, just like you. I have literally let experience taken this and then blended it. So in one approach, if you want to do name techniques, for my new patient Friday, we did anatomy and motion, PRI, DNS, factor, expansion compression, and then I did like dynamic neuromuscular dry needling. Like that's 7 different approaches in one visit. Like my problem is I don't know how to teach it. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I'm sure you're the same way. Is the best people, 80-20 rule applies. So if you only have one tool in your tool belt, you're going to help 80% of the people, and you're going to, I'm going to say it, fuck up the rest 20% because you're going to force a square peg in a round hole, and it ain't going to work for them. So the best people pull and choose. And then expansion compression. Look, I got excited to talk to you about it because I understand you know better than me, but I also know that's not your only thing. So I was guilty of that, but it's like this.
No,
it's so wild. It's so, no, you're good. Don't worry. But like, it's so different where I was like, holy cow. Like you don't think about muscles. You just think about what's happening with fluid dynamics. Like what? Like, so we get super excited, and then it's the overcorrection. And then, and then also, I'll be perfectly honest, I was so skeptical about Zach. So I'm like, this is great, but dude, you weigh 110 pounds soaking wet. Like, not to be rude, but come on. But then I've done it with my 400-pound strongman, and I'm like, oh, there's something to this. But it cannot be your only tool in the tool belt. You've got to have that. And then there we go. Rant over.
Well, I think,
Stop it there.
I mean, I think that Steve hit on a couple of things, right? We're like, it's not. I can get really creative with how to use a hammer. My walls might not like it, but I can get really creative. That was a terrible example. We'll pretend that.
I like it though. That's good.
Like it's all about the application. I tell people all the time, like I'm truly jack of all trades, master of none, often better than a master of one.
Nice. That's it. You know what? Let me do this. Only because that's gold
good.
Right there. Yeah. And here's why I don't want to end this. We got to have you back on. I can't, I'll keep you for 4 hours, and I know that the viewers will continue to listen. They'll come back for the next cardio session probably and just continue. But I know that they're as excited to, for your information as I am. So we have to get you back on, but I don't want to keep you all day. And I have to finish up. I can't let you leave without the 10 questions for intimate time. Are you okay with that, Dr. Marv? Because I didn't want to be rude about it and cut you off. Be like, we got to stop right now.
That's why I cut off, because I looked up and saw the time, and I was like, oh, okay, well, shut up.
You guys are good.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know me, I'm good on a Monday afternoon. Yeah. But at the same time, it's an excuse to have you back on as well, because I can tell, again, representative of the viewers, there's so much there. There's so much that you have to talk about, and there's so much in your brain that you're almost fighting over. It's like you're being rained down in your brain with 40 things in your.
No idea.
Yeah. It's like there's chaos in there. There's so much going on.
How do I want to? And it's great. Like I'll be really honest. Like Skip, I told you on a call a couple weeks ago. Like I feel like I am put on this planet to provide solutions for people who want to train really hard and not have limitations put on them. I feel so strongly about that. I feel so strongly about it because I was the beneficiary of, I don't know if this is related at all. People ask me, like, why do you like to work with men? Like, why are you so passionate about what you do? I think you guys can tell just by listening to me talk. Like, I'm not just like doing this because it's like a way to make money. Like, I love what I do. And I feel so strongly about finding solutions for people, and I get so pissed off at how the narrative strips them away. I had an amazing dad. He worked Every Monday morning, I grew up in Chicago. He got on a plane Monday morning to fly to Philadelphia. And he got home every Friday night or Saturday morning. He never missed a game. He was at every tournament. He made sure he was there. And he wasn't just like showed up there. I mean, he was there like early Saturday morning. If I had a big tournament, I took all the penalty kicks for my soccer team. He was we had a soccer in our backyard. He was with me playing goalie every Saturday morning.
Mhm.
So I knew exactly where to put the ball. I knew exactly how I was playing that day. He was always there with me. I have been so deeply impacted by his presence in my life. And I know how important it is for men to be able to show up for their families and be able to be physically present, mentally present, emotionally present, and spiritually present. I know what impact that has. It kills me when I watch men show up as less of themselves in all those areas because of how they feel the body they live in prohibits that. I can't be okay with that. I can't be okay with that. We need that so badly.
Well, and I think that's why they're gravitating towards you. The passion, look, people aren't stupid. I always say, if you're going to, and there are a lot of trainers out there who do it, they're just counting money. Oh, I just love what I do. You love being lazy and not going to a regular job. That's most of them. So when you are passionate about something and you're sincere, your clients are going to know that. And if you're feigning sincerity and feigning that investment in those, they're going to see that as well. So when you have that passion and you're willing to share that and you're invested, clients will flock to you. And it's funny because then the money does. It just follows. It follows the passion, given time and experience. That's what happens. So people, they have it backwards. They think, oh, this is the money. I don't want to have to do this regular job. I'm going to do what everybody else does. And the whole pyramid plan is backwards. So I think that's probably one of the reasons, or one of the main reasons people do flock to you, and that you're growing such a following. You know, you just said you're not big on social media. It's not like they're just going, oh, she looks like she knows what she's doing. I mean, there are times where clients, I'm sure we've all had this, clients will follow you and they'll say, oh, I saw, like, how did you hear about me? I saw a picture of you on Instagram. I'm probably not your guy then. You don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about my you have no idea whether I have any integrity, whether I'm invested in my clients, that sort of thing. And, you know, it's not like I don't want to take their money, but at the same time, I've got a brand. People come to me typically because of my reputation or they've heard of me. And if you just see a picture of me, and that is what is happening a lot on social media.
Yeah.
I saw this picture. Wow, he looks like he knows what he's talking about. Wow, what a way to pick a trainer. Holy shit.
Well, I think that's why there's such a big trust recession going on. And that's where, like, you guys are thriving. Like, Dr. Marv, I see how much you put into your people. And, like, hearing you, like, deconstruct your clinical thought process it inspires me so much to want to do more in person work. And it's the coolest thing. Because I think that when we stop trying to learn a method for the sake of the method, when we're truly, like, after improvement for people, like, it just, every time I've spoken with you on social media, it just gets me fired up and makes me go like, man, I gotta level up. And it's really cool.
I saw that when I met you. I'll end it on this. I saw when I met you at Swiss, I was taken by the fact that you were, I mean, this sounds kind of silly for me to say, but you were literally excited to talk to me. I'm like, why would she be excited to talk to me? Like, I don't understand. So it was very, I was very flattered, but it was also at a time where my brain wasn't there too. So I may have felt a little bit embarrassed. So if I did come across as awkward, that's why. It was just one of those things. But I remember that, and I'm going to remember that for long, because it helped pull me out of that time when I was having such a hard, it was only a couple days later that I did table talk with Dave Tate. And it was a very, very difficult time. Dr. Marv, I'm not going to get into it, but I was accused of punching an Uber Eats driver in the face. And the only reason I got out of it $15,000 later, 4 months later, was because there was CCTV coverage, camera that no one knew about. And it was my wife
watched
that pointed it out.
Yeah, I watched the episode with Dave. I remember I was like, this does not sound like Skip.
And look, let's be fair. Yeah, I look like, and some of
you
those guys ripped me apart. Yeah, it was rough. But nonetheless, the point is that was a takeaway for me. And I don't want to say a dark time, but in a difficult time. Yeah. And it's also for the viewers, for what it's worth, everybody Doesn't matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You think this person over here, the grass is greener. We all deal with shit, and we all have our doubts, and we all go into those slumps. I spent $3,200 in 1 month on Uber Eats. Ironically enough, I don't think it was the same guy who delivered my food. As I sat on the couch and I would force myself to do client work every night. Netflix, $3,200 in Uber Eats, and I didn't hit a tanner. I looked like dog shit. So it was a difficult time, but I remember that for what it's worth. So
well, the one
it's
cool
something that
thing
stuck out with me.
before intimate time is she said the word that I've been using a lot is purpose. Like I feel now some people might say, ooh, don't get your identity wrapped up in what you do. I was put on the face of the earth to do the job that I do. Full stop. And I have a personal history that I don't talk about because of my medical license. Let's just say I should not be alive. So not only do I have my injury history and doctors telling me to quit giving up your sport. So real quick, Dr. Danny, I've seen 32 doctors for my wrist. 5 of them said I was making it up for attention. The bullshit, the runaround that I'm sure you got too. So I'm super passionate about it. So if you could find people who's like, it's not the money, it's to help people. Altruism is good and bad. Our biggest strength is our biggest weakness, right? We're all perfectionists. I feel like we're all altruistic to the point we probably get taken advantage of a couple times. That happened to me, right? Just a little bit. Yep, I know. So if we could harness it, it's good. But finding like-minded people like the two of you, are you, if you told me a year ago I'd be sitting on a podcast with 2 people who I've looked up to for years and learned from for years, I'd be like, get out. Like, this is wild.
See, I hear that and I go, I'm the dumbest person in the room. Why would you care to, you know what I mean? That's how we perceive ourselves.
But then that's our brain, right? That's because we're always going to downplay it, which is why we're really good at what we do. But at least I will say an I statement, because we're getting way too philosophical. I do not acknowledge my accomplishments as I go.
But it probably pushes you to, in your mind, be better. You know, that type of thing.
There's a neurobiological thing that happens when we acknowledge our accomplishments and we celebrate them. Our brain starts to internalize and make that real.
Oh.
Yep.
So I've been really big into like a lot of the neuroscience because I've been looking a lot at like behavior change. And when you're working with people who've hurt and maybe their pain has become part of their identity, it's like, this is more than just like, this has to be some sort of an internal shift. And that's why, and people celebrate differently, right? Like, I'm not one who wants to sit there and be like, this is where like this not girly part of me exists. For other girls, like, oh my God, I want like a 1 month celebration for this big thing that I did. We celebrate every day for a month. And I'm like, sister, do you have time for that?
Yeah.
But my lack of celebration has made it really hard to internalize things. But when we celebrate something, there's a structure in our brain, our reticular activating system, that looks for confirmation of what we believe. And when we start to control the narrative, when we tell ourselves certain stories, when we celebrate, hey, I went to the Olympia. Side note, we didn't celebrate me going to the Olympia. That broke me.
Yeah.
Broke me. Because for someone who has literally built herself on doing things most people can't and won't do, I had achieved something 16 people in the women's physique division in the world did that year. We didn't celebrate it. I worked through seizures. I worked through my business. I worked through some other injuries and health issues. And it literally turned my brain into, we did this hard thing. And instead of celebrating it, this hard thing broke you. You shouldn't do hard things anymore. It was a total, like, I did not know what to do with myself for all of 2024. So anyway, it is important to celebrate these things, because if we want to change some of that neural circuitry, if we want to change belief systems, and as much as it's like a woo-woo, celebrating it literally changes our brain.
Yeah.
Literally.
All right. On that note, I'm going to, and I try to be quick because we're going to transition to intimate time real quick. It's 10 questions. You don't know what they are, Danny, but I love doing, I don't like answering them.
Do I get to, okay, this will be fun.
But I do like asking them. And I try to move through relatively quickly because the verbosity and all that type of shit. So number one is predictable. Everybody knows what's coming. Where's your best burger?
I have my gallbladder taken out. I haven't had a burger from a restaurant in like 15 years.
Oh, okay.
Makes me so sad.
How long? How long? Oh, goodness. Okay.
Golly.
That is the first. I have to take things like this into consideration when I do the questions because, like, maybe she doesn't have a gallbladder.
Well,
Come on,
to-
Skip. You didn't know that?
No,
Come on.
I did not do my due
To
diligence.
be fair, in high school, I was that girl who could put away a bacon cheeseburger and an order of chicken tenders and finish all of her fries. Like, that was
Nice.
me.
Yeah.
That covered question 1 perfectly. I'm
There we
good
go.
there.
I got you.
No, number 2. Now, this one's multifaceted. Who wears the pants in the marriage? But it's important to note, would your husband agree with your answer?
Dave wears the pants. He would agree.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Number 3,
Most-
favorite Christmas movie that you watch over and over
Die
every
Hard.
year. What is it?
Die Hard.
Die Hard. Okay. In
Die Hard.
our house, it's cringy. My wife loves Christmas Story. I can take it once. I cannot take it 17 times. Anyway.
So you do know I have the leg lamp in my office, right?
And that type of thing I do think is cool. Fragile, it will go down as one of the greatest, eggcorns in it's probably not technically an eggcorn, malaprop, whatever. But anyway. No, number 4. Have you ever called your husband by the name of an ex-boyfriend just to piss him off?
No.
And it doesn't have to be sexual. This is not a sexual question.
No,
Could
I
be,
didn't even think
but it
of
doesn't
I'm
have
not
to be.
gonna lie. I didn't even think about it in that context.
Oh, girl, you got to have
but
more
absolutely.
tools in the toolbox. I've been married for 32 years. I got all sorts of tools here that I can hand you if you need help.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So I won't get into that. No.
Exactly. Skip to number 5. Okay, your cheat meal all of a sudden has 0 calories for 30 minutes. It does not matter what you eat. It doesn't count. What do you eat until you're miserable?
Do I have a gallbladder back?
Yeah. Well,
Yes,
okay.
of
Let's say
course.
you do. Might as
Of
well.
course.
Perfect world.
Just because I haven't had them in forever, bacon cheeseburger.
Okay.
All of the fries, all of it. So many fries.
Now,
And,
without the gallbladder, what do you
wait.
have?
And carrot cake. And
Oh.
probably some like other really, really good chocolate cake. And
Carrot cake. A good
I
carrot
love
cake.
food.
Yes.
Oh man.
A heavy frosted. Yeah. Okay. I'm with
The
you there.
frosting. Yeah.
Number 6, dream vacation. Money is no object.
A month all over Europe?
That's what I was
Okay.
going to say.
So
Literally,
it's
that was
not
my
an
answer,
island.
too.
Some people will say an island. Some people, it just depends. So it's
Yeah,
an
I don't
interesting
know.
question for me.
That's yeah.
All right. Number 7, name one nostalgic song that takes you back to when you were younger, which is not to imply that you're not young. But like say when you were a kid.
Ninja Turtle rap.
No kidding. that is one I have that is a response I have not gotten before that.
I like to keep things a little interesting.
Number
Trying
8,
to go.
the perfume. Now, I have to set this up. I use the word whoring when my wife goes out with her friends. I say she's going out whoring. It's just something that is always, it's just a kind of an inside joke that we use.
Mm.
Much like guys would go out and hang out with guys, the girls go out and they go clubbing or whatever they do. The perfume you wear if you go out whoring with your girlfriends.
I'm a dude. I don't have-
So you wear cologne. Or you don't
Yeah,
wear
I
anything,
wear-
you don't take a shower, and
I wear an aftershave. No, I'm kidding.
Old Spice.
Only
maybe
in
some
bodybuilding.
Axe spray under the arms.
Oh shit, man.
Number 9, what TV series? Here's the caveat. You can't say, I don't watch any TV. Everybody watches at least something on TV. So you're going to have to lie if you're the exception. What TV series on either Netflix, Prime, something like that, are you currently watching right now, whether it's good or bad?
I'm really not watching anything right now. But if I had to make a suggestion, Fringe.
Fringe. Okay, Prime or Netflix?
No idea.
I haven't heard of it. I'll check on it. I'll check and see. Because I have to have one show that I'm watching, even if it's, with my wife for 30 minutes, every night before she goes to bed. I don't because I
Yeah.
sleep all night, but whatever. And number 10. This question was on here. As sure as I asked this before we started the podcast today. Can a man wear a bag and not have to turn in his man card? And you have to be honest. Do I have to turn in my man card?
No. I think it could be well done.
Okay. You're teetering though. You're like, I'm a little bit to the side if
I
you don't
would
have
say
to, but maybe you do.
the vibe and the energy matters.
Okay, fair
Can
enough.
it happen? Yes. But does it have to be the right time? Yeah.
And I'm going to throw Josh McMillan under the bus. He's a friend of mine, great guy, power lifter from back in the day. He was with Elite FTS. We used to ride motorcycles together in groups and shit. He's a really super cool guy. Before I went and bought it, I actually messaged him because he's a horologist as well, collector of fine timepieces. And I saw your watch. I was wondering what it was, but I couldn't work that into the 10 questions. So
My watch? No.
yeah. Like, what is it?
It's a Garmin.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I was looking at it going, I notice watches now. So I had to ask. But I asked him, I said, have you thought about, because he dresses well and he has nice watches, shit like that. And I was like, have you ever thought about would you wear a bag? And he didn't even respond with any text. He just sent a picture of 3 different bags. He goes, these are my 3.
Did you send you the pictures?
Yeah. And so I was like, oh man, Josh is a much bigger dude than I am. But I'm like,
That's
what, if
funny.
he can pull it off, I think I can pull it off too. So I said, this is what I was looking at. He's like, oh, definitely. So
Okay,
that
well now
was,
I need a picture of you in your bag. I need you to tag me in it.
I will definitely do that. But that's my 10 questions. I appreciate because I was able to move through it quickly. Normally, Marvin's like, gosh, that was pretty quick.
Yeah.
So on that note, I will say this. Number one, I want to ask you how people can reach out to you if they want to contact you for either questions or to work with you.
Email is best. You can email me at danny@paradigm-performance.com. You can find me on social media. I'm at Dani LaMartina DPT, but I'm usually on like twice a week. I have a running joke with one of my clients actually, who's he's great. He's turned into a really good friend. But he'll tag me in things, and like 4 days later, I'll be like, I missed it. He'll be like, I know you always do.
You're not on social media very much.
I would love to be more. I think I'm the goal is to be on more, because I'm realizing like I've stayed small and I've kept myself from being able to help a lot more people, and I need to get that mission out there.
And it's a double-edged sword, as you know, and it may be why you're not on there. That you also have on the one hand, you need to have that exposure or it's beneficial. On the other hand, it's an incredibly toxic place. So it's this constant battle with me. I say that if I didn't have a business and I didn't have to be on it, I probably would have my personal Facebook page, which I do. I keep them separate, but that's it. And I would avoid viral posts like the plague because I get sucked in, and then it's just this giant cesspool of low.
It's a necessary evil for being online.
Exactly. But those viral videos, when you get in Instagram and those reels on Facebook, it's just such a cesspool of low browness that you can just see. And I don't, I'm not typically like, I think I'm pretty self-deprecating. I understand my position on the, as far as hierarchy, and so I'm not at the top of the totem pole.
You place yourself too low. But
okay, I'm in the middle somewhere. We'll go with that. But the point being is I don't want to be judgmental of other people and say people are stupid, but sometimes the things, and it's not about you have a different political belief than I do. That's not stupid. That's just a different belief. I have no problem with that. It's the interaction and the lack of the ability to communicate and the emoting and the trite, banal, just, it's just all so yuck. Not all.
Our ability to communicate. Our ability to communicate has absolutely disintegrated. You guys see my dog's just like he's doing.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah. He's disintegrated.
He's like, I'm not getting any attention over here.
That's what his voice sounds like too. By the way, you guys didn't hear, but he's been talking the whole time. Yeah, I think it's disintegrated so much, and unfortunately, so Dave he's a software developer at Amazon, and he's got a couple of people, younger junior developers who are in their early 20s, and he even talks about how their ability to communicate is atrocious.
Oh.
And he was a copywriter before he was a software developer. So he's he's actually a genius. Like people would never know it because all they do is see him like slang heavy weight around.
Yeah.
But his ability to communicate and reason through things is incredible. He'd be a great podcast guest for you too.
That's cool. He sounds like the kind of guy I'd wouldn't mind hanging out with. It wouldn't be questions like, what do you eat? How much you bench, man? Yeah,
No,
the
he
other
get all
day I was
philosophical
doing.
with you.
Yeah,
He's,
I figured
he's-
as much. But that's cool.
especially
That's
about
that.
training.
That's that broadness. I don't want to say culture, but that broadness of being able to communicate. That's why it's difficult for me to be friends or close friends with people in the industry. Not that it can't happen, but it's not something I gravitate towards because they typically want to talk about work and bodybuilding is 24/7 consuming. There are many other
All the
things I'd
time.
rather talk about.
It's
On
funny.
that note, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't even want to cut you off. It's like I want you to keep talking
No,
because
we're
this is
good.
freaking awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna take Dr. Marv, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take us out.
Yes, sir.
But we do have to have Dani, not this patronizing comment of we need to have her back on, then yeah, okay, we're too busy. No, like we need to have you back on. But on that note, we gotta get to getting. This is Skip, Dr. Marv, and Dr. Dani splitting. If you like, because I don't have it in front of me, so I'm just gonna wing it. If you
There we
enjoyed
go.
the show, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and hit that hype button. It should sound a little something like this. Oh, that is the wrong button. I'm gonna go with
There
this
you
one.
go.
I'm gonna go with this one. Okay, I'm just gonna hit every button, but it should sound a little something like this.
There we go.
If you didn't like the show and you think I'm a total screw up, like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. Help us out. TrueNutrition.com. If you need supplements, if you need Team Skip protein, follow the link at the end of the show and in the description. Save 10% on all of their supplements, including, but not just, My Protein Team Skip protein. Dr. Marv, if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they contact you?
Easiest way is Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. Office is Houston Bay Area. Also do telemedicine over Texas, theeducatedmehead.com. But reach out to Dr. Dani.
You have too much skin, I'm your guy. You're saying you're 15% and your fat ass is well over 20%, which most of you are. Everybody thinks they're 10%, but you're not. Go to teamskip.com. You'll find all my contact information, including Team Skip merch. You can follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle as well. Keep in mind, I always say this. I don't want anybody to forget this. This is not a team of 2. It's a team of 3. Today, it's a team of 4. Chris is the enigma behind the scenes, and he's responsible for the visuals and graphics, and he also plays a huge role in the creative process. This project would not work without him. So from all 4 of us this week, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.
Loading King Skip. Loading King Skip.
Like, oh, there goes my earbud. Every time. So weird. It's so freaking
I think it's
weird.
when you get riled up.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more jaw
this-
movement.
Mhm.
Is this you riled up, Dr. Marv?
We're getting there.
Sometimes
We're
it's
getting
hard
there.
to
We're
sometimes
getting
it's
there.
hard to see.
Yeah. So yeah. If we say certain names, then I'll go off the deep end. But
Ooh, no, we have trigger names. This is great.
yes. Skip knows who they are too.
Yeah, I know some of them.